Hello. So today I've come on because somebody's asked me about hip precautions after a total hip replacement. So I thought I'd come on and explain what a total hip replacement is and why we have precautions and what they are. So people tend to have a hip replacement when you've got severe arthritis and it's really affecting your walking and your function. Hip replacement can also occur if you've had a fall and you've fractured your hip badly enough that the consultants or surgeons think the bones aren't recoverable really, and they'll put a hip replacement in. There are differences between the two, which I won't go into now, but I'm going to talk about whether it's traumatic or elective. The hip precautions will be the same. So your hip basically is what we call a ball and socket joint. That means the top of your thigh here, right in there, your thigh bone comes up, makes a little angle, and then there's a big ball at the top, which then sits in a cup, which is part of the pelvis. Now obviously that takes an awful lot of weight because it holds our whole upper body and arms and head. So it's designed really well to take that weight. And obviously hip arthritis is quite common because we use them all the time. And if you're very active throughout your life, even though you're encouraged to, you can be punished for it with arthritis at the end. It's nice, isn't it? So what happens when you have a total hip replacement is they take the ball off and a little bit of the stem here. They take that off and replace it with a metal stem and a metal ball. The cup is cleaned out, and then there's also a metal cup that puts. Now there's different types of material that they use these days. It depends, I think, on price, on preference from the surgeon. It just depends. But basically you have a new cup inside and you have a new ball. Now the difference is when it's your normal hip and cup, the big ball fits lovely into that cup. There's no room except for your little bit of joint space for it to move, so it can move nicely in all the directions it needs to. When you have a new hip, the ball that goes in is quite small. You can sort of think of a golf ball, maybe a little bit bigger, but you still have quite a big cup, which means, for example, it's got all this room to move about in. Because it's got all this room to move about in, it's easier to dislocate. The other thing is, because you've had a hip replacement, they've had to cut through all your muscles, all the tissue around your hip joint, and then when it's done, they sew it back up. So that means you've got a weakness around there as well. So usually you've got big muscles around there, lots of tissue structures that keep it tight and keep everything in its place. And obviously after a hip replacement, it's very weak. Everything's been pulled and pushed. There's lots of trauma in there. There's lots of swelling. So you have to be very careful that this ball doesn't pop out. Now the way it can pop out is a few things really. So, well, there are three main precautions. So the first one is not lifting your leg over 90 degrees. So if I'm standing here and I lift that leg, that's as far as this leg can go. Can't go up here. That's as far as it can go. To be honest, if you're standing, you're not going to be bringing your leg up here, and it would be quite hard. Although this is one of the exercises you should be given. But this in turn also has an effect on when you sit down. So this chair, probably can't see very well, is actually perfect if I was to have a hip replacement, because the angle here is less than 90 degrees, that way or that way, either way, but it's not 90 degrees. My hip is lower, it's not up here. If your leg is to go that way, it causes the ball to come down. And that's when it could just pop out just by mistake. And it's only just because of weakness and everything's just not settling. So you'll find once you come home, you'll have maybe your bed, your chairs, your toilets, all measured specific to your height so that you don't go over that angle. Now the other thing is crossing your legs. So bringing my right leg over my left means, if I do it this way, that way, you could potentially dislocate that way. So no bringing your leg across here, no crossing your legs when you sat down. And the other thing is when you're lying in bed, you're generally asked to lie in bed flat on your back. That way, everything's all right. If you lie on your good side, there's a chance that this leg can drop across. So very, very rarely have I seen surgeons say, yes, you can lie on your side. If they do, you tend to have to be propped up by pillows to keep that leg in the same place. The problem is you're asleep and you move, and those pillows could move, and your leg's at risk of passing your midline, and then you're at risk of dislocation. So those are the risks. The other thing is twisting. So if you're even just sat, just twisting that way, you can dislocate. Just because you're moving around and that hip's not secure. And it's the same if you were standing. So if you're twisting that way, again, you're just giving it an opportunity to dislocate. The other thing is twisting your leg in and out. That's a no-no as well. So those are the three main things to avoid a hip dislocation. The problem is once your hip dislocates, it's more than likely to dislocate again and it becomes more of a problem. Usually it's only for 3 months, 12 weeks. It's tough, but it's really, really worth it, definitely. So no lifting your leg higher than that 90 degrees, no crossing your legs, no twisting. Any more questions around that? Comment below and I'll get back to you. Bye bye.